Welcome to the golden era of the welterweight division. Welterweight flourishment, the best fights and performances are going to congregate into this weight class. The weight class is so good, it gets you kicking your feet. Welterweight's the most exciting weight class, peak of the UFC, rich with talent, with so many contenders rising to the surface. There has never been a better time to watch the welterweight division. I mean, bro, it's so good. Joaquin Buckley, who only has one loss, and that was the Kamaru Usman, is number 10 in the rankings. Now, that would spell for a gatekeeper or mediocre fighter in any other weight class. But to be number 10 at welterweight still places you in the perimeters of a high-level fighter, which is crazy, dude. Usman is number 8. Usman, who they're talking about getting a next title shot. Let's not do that. There's some powerful momentum with the other contenders. One of them certainly deserves a title shot before Usman. What happened last weekend was the worst thing that could have happened for Usman's chances. The stellar knockouts from Morales and Prates eradicated Usman's title shot, and Garry and Belal might disintegrate the pieces of it. I mean, bro, look at the activity of the rankings. I've never seen this before. Every fighter except 2 have moved around. There hasn't been this much movement since Kelvin selecting at a buffet line. JDM has dropped to number 1, Belal to number 2. Morales rised up 5 spots to number 3. Shavkat dropped 1 to 4. Prates ascended 4 to number 5, which is the only one I disagree with. He should not be above Garry. So realistically, Garry should have moved up 1, and Prates only up 3. Brady dropped 5 to number 7. Usman dropped 3 to number 8. Leon dropped 5 to number 9. Buckley dropped 2 to number 10. Bonfim dropped 1 to 11. Burns stayed the same. Colby dropped 2. Neal 1. Rodriguez 1. And Mike Malott has dropped out of the rankings. He had to low blow Holland to win, so the ranking didn't seem to fit. The welterweight division has changed in front of our eyes after one single event, and we have another fight coming up with Belal Muhammad versus Garry this weekend. But what a time of such a shift to be met by a conqueror, crossing into new lands to expand his legacy in Islam Makhachev. It got so good just to boost Islam's legacy. Yo, as good as the weight class is, I don't know if any of them beat Islam. I mean, this is one of the best weight classes we've ever seen of any era, but such unfortunate timing. Welterweight has just hit its prime form at the very same time that Islam decided to dominate their champion to the point of weeping in sorrow. Nothing against JDM, but it was like a phenomenon to watch. I've never seen a fighter mid-fight start crying. It more so speaks to the skill level of Islam Makhachev than any criticism of JDM himself. JDM is not going to be the only one. Islam is going to send away a lot of other fighters in tears as well. Don't worry, JDM, you won't be alone. At some point, this division is going to have to rename this from the golden era of welterweight to the era of Islam Makhachev. Still the best era ever, do not be mistaken of that. True greatness precedes them, but the sight of such greatness instills a chase of glory in all of these contenders. They are all clamoring. Wait, not you. They are all clamoring to fight this guy. Except Belal Muhammad. He's still too good of friends with Islam. He won't fight him. It is what it is. Well, if Garry beats him, then we don't have to even worry about Belal being a number 1 contender, not fighting Islam. But that's only if Garry beats him. It's not a given. Although it would be more beneficial for the division, but we'll see. It's so good to have such a prestigious champion and many contenders who are mentally prepared to fight him already. All of these guys want a piece of Islam Makhachev, but will they chew what they can't swallow? Pause. Will the challenge be too great for all of them? This is not just a regular champion. Islam Makhachev is a completely different level. We're talking about one of the absolute GOATs of the sport in his prime. And honestly, he looked amazing as JDM. The cardio was on point. The skills were all intact. Some even believe he was better than ever against JDM. I mean, that was a guy that Khabib was concerned about, and it resulted in such an easy fight for Islam. He is one of the best fighters we have ever seen before. And at this point, I think any fighter who even makes a fight competitive with him deserves a feather in their cap. That is quite the feat. Even all the high praise and skill of the weight class will not relieve themselves of Islam's grip. Dars chokes on everybody, and I honestly think JDM has some of the best submission defense. So his failure to submit JDM, because again, with all the criticism that, Islam wasn't trying to go for a finish, he was. He did go for multiple submissions throughout. And I think he will finish some of these other guys who are not as defensively prepared as JDM was. There's a few other good grapplers though, like Shavkat and Brady. Like, these two are going to be difficult to submit, but with an asterisk on Shavkat. We don't know what version we're going to get on his return. He had some pretty gnarly injuries, and I just don't know if we're going to see a prime Shavkat return or a Tony Ferguson replica. Islam's ascension is a sight to behold. I mean, he is so good. He makes champions cry in front of him. Entering the next round, that 5th round was so incredibly one-sided. The fruits of Islam's work were debilitating JDM into a steeper defeat. 17 seconds was how long he stood for. And then he got floored by a takedown. That's such a demoralizing loss. It's quite distinct from getting knocked out, where there's some coping to deal with it. There's no way to cope from getting dominated, to the point that you have accepted that your opponent is essentially just better than you. Knockouts can be diluted to luck. Domination cannot. And if the champion who defeated Belal Muhammad was that helpless fighting him, guided by coaches who are familiar with Islam, prepared against him multiple times, but still it was not sufficient, what can the rest of these welterweights do? It's looking like Islam Makhachev could rule the welterweight division with an iron fist. Or impossible takedowns. I mean, look at the top of the rankings right now. It's quite interesting. So you have Jack Della Maddalena, who just lost to him. He couldn't defend the takedowns. Belal Muhammad refuses to fight him out of friendship, which is always an annoyance, but thankfully the weight class has many more contenders if Belal passes up the opportunity. There is Michael Morales. He's a grappler. He's a big guy. He could probably defend some takedowns, but technically he is so much more deficient. His physicality could prove to be quite a hurdle for Islam until Islam gets conditioned to it. Once he gets used to the size and the strength and the reach, if he does, that is, it is a fight at the end of the day, and Morales has incredible power. Like, if Islam gets into the second half of the second round, I think the fight is pretty much his for the taking. He'll get used to the attributes and make Michael Morales the nail, which is not the usual position that he's in. He's the hammer swinging at everybody, but he did have some interesting fights in the past with Nikolai Vorotennikov in the Contender series, where he wasn't able to just steamroll his opponent in that one, but that was a long time ago. How does he do off his back when the opponent is smothering him with top pressure, passing into more dominant positions, and attacking with submissions at all times, while continuously breaking down his posts and balance whenever he tries to stand up? Does he have the heart to continue afterward? It is yet to be seen in the UFC. And then there's Ian Garry, who's a solid, well-rounded fighter, but grappling just not up to par. There is Carlos Prates, who's an amazing striker, but again, grappling is just not proficient enough. Shavkat Rakhmonov would be an interesting fight. He is now claiming his title shot, and it's bro, we are not in 2024. This division is moving forward at rapid pace, and you stood still. Due to injury, of course. So all these guys are passing him up, and definitely cannot cash in his title shot. That's not how it works. He defeated a short notice Ian Garry and then Jeff Neal. That is not close to enough to get a title shot. He's also not the only undefeated fighter clamoring at that title shot. Michael Morales is above him. He just defeated Sean Brady, who is number 2 in the rankings. So Shavkat needs to fight someone else, but I do think stylistically, if he washes the rust off, he could pose the most dangerous problem, but I don't want to see that fight when he's not at his best. We want to see Shavkat fight Islam when he is 100% prepared for it, not when he's rusty, coming off a year hiatus. That is not how we want to see him waste his title shot, so he needs to fight somebody else. Garners one more win, and then you give him his much-deserved title shot. Then there's Kamaru Usman, who can be difficult to wrestle with, but he's no longer in his prime. His wrestling is very strong, his striking has slowed down. And then there's Leon Edwards and Sean Brady. I think Brady could be puzzling in the grappling, but his striking is somewhat lacking. And then Leon is done for. Leon's done, bro. Hang it up. It's over. He is getting washed by everybody so far, showing not to be top tier anymore. He's got to fight like Gabriel Bonfim or something, dude. And honestly, I don't even know if he beats Bonfim. That is so crazy how the tides have shifted for a guy who was a champion with 2 defenses, defeated Kamaru Usman twice, can't even get a win anymore. His grappling and striking are just not technical enough with the best guys. And I don't know if he could beat the number 10 guy. That is quite the dilemma for Leon. So this is how I would rank Islam's toughest fights from the most to the least. His toughest fight is Shavkat Rakhmonov. With speculation of him washing the rust off, I do believe technically and stylistically, he is the toughest fight. He's tall and long for the weight class. Defense leaves much to be desired. The guy has good grappling, but the one chink in his armor was when Ian Garry got his back. That was quite alarming, but perhaps it was the element of surprise. He didn't expect Garry to take him down. It happens sometimes, Alexander Gustafsson took down John Jones, and nobody thought he would even attempt a takedown, right? Everybody thought he was just going to strike with him, but, Gus did show that he was a very prominent wrestler for MMA. Perhaps Ian Garry does the same thing. He outgrappled Carlos Prates, he took down Shavkat, got his back. We'll see how he fights at Belal Muhammad. If he takes him down too, I mean, we're probably looking at the welterweight version of Alexander Gustafsson, you know? Tall, long, great boxing, good wrestling, great footwork, blonde. There's a lot of resemblance there. Yeah, I think Shavkat is the number one most difficult fight for Islam Makhachev. I would give him like a 40% chance of beating him. Number 2, I would honestly say is Michael Morales. The physicality is something that you cannot ignore. Like, this guy is enormous for the weight class. He's incredibly long, powerful, strong. He pressures pretty well. His technique is very awkward, but he makes the jab work so efficiently. He's very reliant and gifted with the reach. He makes it work very well. There are some fighters who have a long reach that don't know how to use it at all. Even though his right hand could lack proper form, the form is still good enough to knock you out. So that's all that matters. And those angles could be pretty tricky to defend. His stance is also very interesting. Like, he stands so squared in front of you. Both of his legs are like faced outward with his hips pulled away. It's an awkward stance, but it's very solid and it looks quite sturdy to take him off balance. I mean, shooting it on those hips at long range is going to meet some obstacles there. Like, he's always ready to dig an underhook, sprawl, and the hips are so far away. It causes such an interesting takedown dynamic. And is Morales strong enough to just stand up from Islam? I don't think so. I think Islam is too good to allow a Derek Lewis technique to work in his division. The physicality is quite dangerous there, but I think he has like a 38% chance versus Shavkat's 40. Number 3, I would say, wow, this is actually like a Nightmare Matchups video. I would say it's Ian Garry. Now, this could get fact-checked this weekend, at least prospectively, if Belal beats him with wrestling. I think if Garry can handle that accordingly, then his chances versus Islam should stay intact, in my opinion. It just depends on how the Belal fight plays out, shifting this matchup with Islam somewhat. But I think he's number 3 until proven otherwise. Due to the fact that he's well-rounded, he's a highly intelligent fighter. I think below Islam, he exceeds in fight IQ. He knows how to neutralize his opponent. You could tell he understands the opponent's style very well. Even on short notice, he found a way to get a takedown on Shavkat and get his back. He neutralized Prates' power for the most part until the 5th round. It looked like Garry was getting tired. The smoker out-cardioed the vegan. Nicotine and alcohol are confirmed to be the best diet for fighting. Still delivered with that power in the 5th round where Garry was slowing down. That is quite impressive, dude. I mean, look what the guy just did to Leon Edwards, who was a counter striker and has a similar build to Ian Garry, right? He's 6'2", he has the same reach, but he could not avoid the power from the first round. Ian Garry avoided it for 4.5 rounds. And although he's not nearly as good of a grappler as Islam is, I think his reach, footwork, and striking skills, along with that fight IQ, makes him a notable challenger for Islam Makhachev, perhaps placing his chances at like a 35%. And then afterward, I would put Carlos Prates. Russian creatine versus squares and booze. But some people might disagree with this. Some people might put Sean Brady and Belal above him. I disagree. The reason why I would put Prates above those two is because he has a possibility of winning the fight. He has the reach, the knockout power. He's one of the best strikers in the division. I think he's technically behind Ian Garry and maybe JDM, I don't know. That would be an awesome fight to actually watch. But he's good enough, right? He has one-punch knockout power. He's a very lethal striker, but his grappling is just not up to par whatsoever. It would be like it's non-existent, to be honest. Like, I think it would be a pretty thorough beatdown with all things considered. I give Prates like a 30% chance of winning. Brady and Belal don't have like a reasonable chance of winning that fight. I mean, I don't think they could beat Islam by a decision. I don't think they could finish him. We'll get to Usman, who I actually believe is like on a similar difficulty level as Prates, but for different reasons. Obviously, Prates is the striker and Usman's more of a wrestler. But yeah, that's the main reason why I have Prates above Brady and Belal, is because I think the best result that they can garner is to make the fight competitive. Like, Islam would have to make a monumental mistake to get finished by those two. Just stylistically, it's tough, right? He would have to, like, throw his head downward at Brady's uppercut to get knocked out, or jump in the air for Belal to grab him and dump him on his head or something. Now, I think they can avoid a dominating loss more than the others because they can grapple very well and they're well-rounded. You know, Islam is not going to be able to handle them on the ground like he can against, you know, potentially Michael Morales and Prates and Ian Garry, but they can't beat him the way those guys can, right? Prates can knock him out dead without even him making a monumental mistake. It could be something Prates did very well, and Islam makes a very common error of getting knocked out. Same with Michael Morales. Like, you know, if Islam slightly moves his head off the center line in reaction of that long jab and Morales just blasts him on the side of the head with that awkward angled hook, that could knock him out. Shavkat is the most dangerous fighter in the division. He's the best finisher by far, and he's highly technical offensively everywhere. Those guys can all get dominated by Islam, but they can also all finish him too. Brady and Belal cannot finish him. They can only make the fight competitive. I think that's as close as they get to winning the fight, due to the stylistic collision between them. So along with Prates, I would say Kamaru Usman has a similar chance, mainly for the fact that he's a proficient wrestler, but also can deliver with a lot of punching power, and that's where Belal and Brady lack in. If they had Usman's power, I would of course raise him higher on this, but they don't. And even though Usman is no longer in his prime, I still think he provides a very interesting challenge. He has a long reach, he has a decent jab, his power has to be respected, and he's the best wrestler after Islam. I think Usman's striking skills have declined, but his wrestling has at the very least stagnated. But now due to that, he might be focusing more on wrestling his opponents than before, which I don't think is the best way to fight Islam. I think we'd have to rely more on his power and reach and try to defend Islam's takedowns if he approaches it that way. But here's the thing about Islam versus Usman, Brady, and Belal. He's a better striker than all three of them combined. He's so much more technical than them. He could hit harder than Brady and Belal while being much faster than Usman. I think his game plan to beat those three is to actually defend their takedowns, forcing them in the stand-up for him to essentially style on them there. And I don't think Usman's legs can take too many calf kicks or kicks on the inside or outside of the knee. I think Usman's legs are more brittle than JDM's. Now, I do have to make a distinction. If this was a prime Usman, I don't know who would win this. I think prime Usman versus Islam is as close of a fight as you can get. So I think prime versus prime, it's almost an even fight, but due to the withering of his striking skills, more specifically his speed, I'm pretty confident that Islam would beat him, as well as Prates, Brady, Belal, and everybody lower ranked than them. This would happen to Leon, and Buckley gets dominated even worse than JDM did. That's how I stack up the welterweights to Islam, but one of them has to fight him, and I think it has to be one of two fighters. As it stands, Michael Morales, I believe, is the rightful #1 contender. He beat the #2 guy in emphatic fashion. Dana indicated that the winner of him versus Brady was going to be the next up for a title shot, and it was not a scathing win, dude. It was not a close fight at all. That is the type of performance to earn a title shot. But I also think that Garry can earn a shot with a dominant win over Belal Muhammad, because he would have accumulated Belal and Prates as his notable wins. They present quite distinct problems for Islam to solve, but I think they're both good fights. Then JDM, I think, has a few options here. He could fight Carlos Prates. The striking between them two would be awesome, dude. But another fight could be him versus Sean Brady. Now, I understand that it doesn't make sense for the #1 guy to fight the #7 guy, but they're both coming off a loss, and there's a lot of other contenders coming off wins. Or he could fight the loser of Garry versus Belal Muhammad. He has a lot of options. Then there's Michael Morales, who I believe should fight Islam Makhachev, but if not, he could fight Prates. The Prates fight would be insane. I think that's the most exciting possible fight. The power that slings between those two would result in a very quick knockout for sure. But it's essentially, Prates being the more technical striker versus Morales being the bigger fighter, and he might take the fight to the ground and overpower Prates. There's a high probability that he would approach it that way. It would give him such an obvious advantage too, So we talked about Prates, but then there's Sean Brady, who I think could fight JDM, but also he could fight Usman, or potentially the loser of Belal versus Garry. So I like the Usman fight in particular because of one main reason. It naturally lines up every other contender to have their next logical matchup. And even for Usman, it is somewhat logical because he's the lowest ranked guy. If there's a winning contender that has to fight a losing contender, I would rather it be Usman, due to the fact that he's the lowest ranked winning contender. He's #8, and he would still fight someone who's above him. And it's a good stylistic matchup too. The grappling would be awesome to see between them, but Brady has a lot of options as well, even coming off a loss. I mean, he could also fight Buckley. I think he dominates that fight, if he wrestles, that is, which I think he will. Buckley just doesn't have great takedown defense. And then for Usman, he could fight JDM. He could fight the winner of Belal versus Garry. He could fight the loser of that fight too. I mean, it really depends on Belal's result there, because I think a lot of people want to see that fight, and the trash talk between the two will be so cringe, but also interesting. We all want to know what happened on the podcast that Belal is always talking about, dude. Release the episode. Belal talks about it like these guys went to war in the podcast room. Apparently, Belal said that he slapped Usman, but regardless of the drama, it is quite deranged that they've never fought each other. Well, they should get matched up in the future, and I think win or lose of the Garry fight we want to see Usman fight Belal. And then for Joaquin Buckley, he can fight Sean Brady. He could fight the loser of Belal versus Garry. He could fight Leon Edwards. Any of those fights would be great. And then for Leon, he's got to fight Gabriel Bonfim. And then for the other guys, Gilbert Burns could fight Jeff Neal, and Daniel Rodriguez can fight Mike Malott. Colby seems like he's not going to fight anybody. The guy's like pretty much retired. I don't know why he's still ranked. So that's all the matchmaking for the welterweight division. And who gives Islam the toughest fight? It can be pretty redundant because I just don't think any of them beat him. He's one of the best fighters we've ever seen before. And honestly, I was thinking about like where I would place him amongst the GOATs. And man, he is at least in the top 5. And he's not even done, dude. Islam is ready to continue. He says there are many more title defenses to come. And hopefully frequently, dude. We want to see Islam defend this title at a pretty rapid rate. But who do you guys think are his most difficult fights? And how would you matchmake the welterweight division? And I'll see you guys in the next video.